Kombucha, kimchi, handfuls of fiber. We spend a lot of time micromanaging our diets, assuming the food we eat is the ultimate control switch for our gut health. But the actual governing forces of that internal ecosystem look very different. Today, we're going to map out the true hierarchy of gut influence, track the literal 8-year timeline of a single common prescription, and outline the exact question you need to ask your doctor tomorrow. The data for this comes from a massive 2026 study published in Nature Medicine. Researchers tracked the lifestyles, prescriptions, and stool samples of nearly 15,000 adults, upending our basic assumptions about what controls the microbiome. This chart illustrates the newly discovered hierarchy of microbiome influence. The biological changes caused by your diet and even the natural aging process are dwarfed by a third factor. Medications impact your gut approximately 3 times more than diet or aging. All those daily dietary efforts to feed our good bacteria are constantly overshadowed by the hidden, dominant impact of the things sitting right inside our medicine cabinets. The heaviest hitters in that cabinet are antibiotics. Roughly 70% of us have taken them in the last few years, usually without a second thought. We tend to treat them as a brief inconvenience. You swallow a pill for 3 to 7 days, the infection clears up, and you move on with your life. But this timeline graphic shows the reality of that interaction. That tiny block represents a standard 7-day course. The massive shadow stretching out behind it represents the 8 years of measurable disruption to your intestinal environment caused by that single prescription. A standard antibiotic course represents a multi-year biological commitment that continues long after the infection itself is gone. To understand what that commitment looks like, we have to look inside the body, starting on day 1 of a prescription. This graph tracks your gut ecology over time. In that first year post-antibiotics, we see a massive, immediate decline in bacterial species variety. The drugs wipe out huge swaths of your natural microbiome, marking the period of peak disruption. As we move into years 1 through 4, that altered composition leaves a biological void. Without the normal variety of good bacteria competing for resources, harmful bacteria take advantage of the empty space and begin to proliferate. This mid-term bacterial shift is where the physical symptoms emerge. Chronic dysbiosis is heavily linked to severe metabolic disorders, specifically increasing the risk for type 2 diabetes, obesity, and hyperlipidemia. Even as we look out 4 to 8 years after that original week of pills, the system still hasn't fully reset. Measurable traces of the medication's impact persist in 10 to 15% of your bacterial species. A short-term pharmaceutical cure can create a long-term vulnerability to chronic metabolic and cardiovascular diseases. But the Swedish study also uncovered a crucial nuance in the data. It depends almost entirely on the specific weapon chosen for the job. This changes the modern clinical mandate. Doctors and patients now have to weigh 2 competing priorities: immediate infection control versus long-term ecological preservation. Antibiotics are life-saving, and patients must never unilaterally stop taking a prescribed course halfway through. The strategy happens before the prescription is written. At your next doctor's visit, explicitly ask if a lower-impact alternative, like a targeted penicillin, offers comparable efficacy for your specific infection. This simple inquiry ensures you are actively protecting your internal ecosystem while addressing the immediate infection. To summarize, your medications sit at the top of your microbiome hierarchy, outstripping the impact of diet and aging by 3 to 1. Second, swallowing a standard 7-day course of high-impact antibiotics echoes in your system for up to 8 years, directly increasing your risk for metabolic disease. And finally, you have the power to protect yourself simply by asking your doctor if a lower-impact antibiotic is the right fit. Thanks to this data, you no longer have to choose between curing today's infection and protecting tomorrow's health.